and welcome to Mindscapes, our series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is one of India's most distinguished and prolific musicians, classical musicians. He comes from a distinguished lineage that goes back to the famous musician Tansen, a lineage that invented the instrument that he plays. I'm delighted to welcome Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. Welcome. You have been, your family, your tradition, you have children who play, have been deeply committed to the purity of music, of the musical form, of the associations that go with it.
Yes.
Why is the purity so important? Is there something intrinsic to being pure? To what degree does it change and evolve, and does change make it impure in some ways?
I mean, this reminds me in 1960 when my father received Padma Bhushan. He appealed to the President of India to look after the purity of Rag Darbari Kanada. So purity is really very important, and we are committed our life, we have surrendered ourselves to God, to the art, to the Sarod, and to the purity of our ancient ragas like Darbari, Malkos, Yaman, Bageshri, and we don't want to compromise. At the same time, I feel today that nobody in this world, or at least in our own country, nobody is bothered about the character of our music being ruined or spoiled. I mean, what we hear on All India Radio or television, there's nobody to see whether the music they are playing, even as a signature tune, it's not Indian music.
What is what is it about music when it becomes spoiled? You use the word spoiled. You know, you have innovation, you have change, you have instrumentation. What is the point where you feel it's been corrupted? And what is legitimate change? I mean, you two have done compositions with the Hong Kong Philharmonic.
Yeah.
And so where is what is the balance?
You know, as we discussed about the purity, like Rag Malkos is a pentatonic rag. It has 5 notes. And as a classical musician who has such rich legacy and the gurus and ancestors, so I cannot take liberty with Rag Malkos. Rag Malkos is like a human being, and with great reverence, with great respect, I even pray to Rag Malkos. I hope I'm able to portray your true picture and true self of Malkos. So this is the challenge, that I am only improvising within these 5 notes. So, da da ra 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 ra, da ra 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 ra. So technically they are only 5 notes. Then da 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 da. So there are so many expressions, but within these 5 notes, sometimes I do feel like adding another note, like da 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 da. It becomes something else, and maybe Rag Malkos will not approve of this. And the Rag Malkos, my father used to say that sometimes even a rag can curse you. If the rag gets disturbed, if you are not respectful, if you are not attentive. So that is why it's a great satisfaction when we listen to our recordings now. I mean, I wish earlier also we had tape recorders. We could not record so many great musicians. But now after the concert, because the concert cannot be repeated, I cannot play exactly the way I played yesterday. I mean, this concept, the whole Western world, they really don't understand even now, that we don't rehearse, we don't plan anything. Everything happens on the stage, and we have an oral tradition. We don't read music, we don't write music, we don't have conductor. And most of the time, I mean, my eyes are closed, and I think I am connected with some cosmic powers. Because when I listen to my music, many a times I can't believe that I did it. I think somebody else did it. And it is entirely with the blessings of gurus and my father, my mother, parents. Because music has to be appealing. That is the ultimate message. I mean, if my music is not appealing, or if somebody is not satisfied with my music, if somebody is unhappy with my concert, perhaps it is my fault, not the listener's fault.
To what extent, when you play, are you conscious of the audience? The critics writing about you, one of the sort of qualities you have is this relationship with the audience, is what is perceived from the outside, and you've already articulated a sensitiveness
Yes.
To the audience. So to what degree do you get lost in your music, and how do you counterpoint that with being sensitive to the audience's response?
You see, I very strongly feel that I am not available for everybody. I am not an entertainer. I only play for those who respect my tradition, my culture, my instrument, my way of expression. And I don't have very much, not much respect for music critics, because they have not been very faithful. They have not really reviewed the magic of a concerts. They always try to impose on the readers that how knowledgeable they are. If you are knowledgeable, then why don't you perform? Why don't you, face the audience? It's very easy to write anything, but I don't think they have done a good service as a critic. Most of them, I mean, I know few people, they have always been very destructive. They always wrote negative things. So yes, articles, interviews, photographs. People, I mean, if 3,000 people, if they have approved a concert, if they have liked a concert, it is a successful concert. So, but in my life, I have never ever complained also, because I feel it is their way of life, writing, and my life is to keep on playing, singing, and giving my best. What I think is my best, I give.
So what would you describe as the qualities of a good critic, and what might be the role of a critic?
You see, unfortunately, most of the unsuccessful musicians became critics. So they feel frustrated, and they have often attacked on the people who are successful. So it is very sad. I feel sad for them also. Every time I see them in a very bad shape, because they are always not getting good wishes from great people, whom people love. You see, love is the most important thing.
You have mentioned a number of times this aspect of praying to God, of experiencing the cosmic powers when you play.
Yes.
You obviously feel this this profound relationship happening through your music.
Yes.
Is music then the God? Do you feel that the music is a means to something larger than itself?
You see, in our tradition, there has been a old saying that Swar hi Ishwar hai. The sound is God. There is only two types of music in the world. One is based on literature, or poetry, or text. So you call that kind of music songs, or bhajan, kirtan, qawwali, ghazal, khayal, thumri, dadra, anything. The other kind of music is pure sound. Like when you are listening to a symphony, Western classical music, it's pure sound. Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, they dealt with pure sound. And I'm also dealing with pure sound. I just feel the sound. Words, yes, now I'm making music album, I'm dealing with words, I know songs. But the ecstasy of music is pure sound. Da, 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 and it is almost like writing, you know, you are when you are writing poetry, you are particular about comma, semicolon, full stop. In music also. Da, 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 ra, da. So to experience, I mean, I would love to appeal to all the listeners of the world that when they listen to music, especially pure music like my Sarod or symphony or sarangi, while listening to any sound, you must listen with concentration. If you listen with concentration, you will receive all the positive effects of that sound and music. I know a lot of listeners, it has become a habit to have some sound at the background. The moment you enter your room, you switch on the music, but you are writing, you are eating, you are doing lots of other things. But I wish our music, especially Indian classical music, or listening to my Sarod, please listen to it with concentration. Then you will realize what the sound can do to the human, much more than yoga. Because yoga is a different science. There's no role of sound, but sound is most effective. Sound, now a lot of doctors, they are treating patients with music therapy. So I feel sad when people don't listen to music with concentration.
You have sort of innovated in the sense that the Sarod is an innovation, relatively recent in the long tradition of Indian classical music. So I've just been wondering how you reconcile aspects of change and development in music.
Yes.
How do you reconcile aspects of development and change and evolution in music? You innovate, you bring a new dimension into the way you play the Sarod.
Yes.
And the aspect of purity that you had mentioned, that I can see, the purity as an intention of honesty, of respect, of reverence.
Yes.
But surely in some ways, development and change is an inevitable part of the process. And when do we consider change and innovation to be legitimate and good, and when do we consider it to be negative? For example, you have had to work with technology, the amplification of the sound, of records and CDs and cassettes, and each has a different sort of demand on you, makes accessible your music. So when does it become negative and when is it positive progress? What is the yardstick that you would use?
You see, first of all, whatever, after a concert, whatever kind of music you are presenting, if you think you are doing the right thing, your conscience is, get the some kind of consent or approval. So that's the most important thing. As I said, that there's a tremendous difference between a popular musician or entertainer and a classical musician. Because whatever I'm doing for the sake of music. I'm not worried about my livelihood, because when you give yourself to God, when you surrender yourself to music, 2 + 2 is not always 4. It could be 0, and it has been 0 for a lot of musicians and artists. And it can be 1000 also. But one has to take this journey. You have to enter in this dark tunnel, first of all, and in the hope of sunshine someday, somewhere. You know how Sarod, if we talk only of Sarod, 50 years back, what was the sound of Sarod? I mean, there have been great Sarod players, great musicians, and but there was some scientific problems, because my instrument has steel strings. It's made of teak wood. The belly is covered with a skin and the metal fingerboard. And I don't have frets like, sitar and guitar and mandolin. So it's very demanding, very challenging, very difficult. And it is also not played with the fingertip. I have to press the string with the edge of my nails and slide. So to bring out human voice, human expressions, was most difficult. So this is what I used to discuss with my father. He used to get irritated sometimes. He asked too many questions. I used to ask him, Sahab, Abba Sahab, why Sarod is not so expressive? Why we can't? He often said that because it's difficult, there's no frets, there's no bow, it's a pluck instrument, you can't bring out everything. So with his blessings, he showed me the way. I always wanted to sing through my instrument. All aspect of, in my school days, I even played Come September on the Sarod, but it was challenging to play Vaishnav Janato. I never heard in my lifetime any Sarod player playing a Vaishnav Janato or Ram Dhun, Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram. I played on my Sarod because this was my passion, and this is, and still I am still struggling, I am still trying, and I mean, but by the grace of God, Sarod has become more expressive than before, and I would like to be more expressive and more appealing.
Do you feel that your music has made you a better human being in terms of being a more moral human being, being a good human being in terms of your social relationships, and then the qualities that describe a good human being: compassionate, loving, generous?
You see, this is very sad, you know, in this creative field. It's divine, it is, you talk of God and you talk of, you know, spirituality, but at the same time, if you analyze, it's a technical thing. It's a fine art. And by and large, we are very critical about each other. By and large, we are critical people. We are always looking faults at the other people. I mean, knowingly or unknowingly, you feel like saying, oh, somebody is not playing right, somebody is not singing right, the rag is not right, besura hai, wo betala hai. But at the same time, whoever is blessed by the Guru, whoever had the feeling of improving himself, or whoever has the feeling of I want to be improved, I'm trying to improve myself as a human being, as a musician. It's constant process. As I said, I'm not complete. I would like to be complete someday, one day. But if you are blessed by your Guru or by God, then you only see the good points of the others. If you are highly blessed, then only you see the contribution of others.
Do you feel highly blessed?
I am grateful to God. That used to be my homework, actually, homework. My father, he used to mention few names, like Ustad Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Ustad Fayaz Khan Sahab, Ustad Ali Khan Sahab. And so many great, you know, he will ask me, what was the subject, for which particular subject Ustad Abdul Karim Khan Sahab became so famous? What was his contribution? What was Ustad Fayaz Khan Sahab's contribution? So I used to, you know, listen to their records. I used to, you know, analyze and discuss, and I could tell him. I said, this is the way Abdul Karim Khan Sahab sang. This is the way Fayaz Khan Sahab sang. This is the way Banaras Thumri. So he used to give that kind of. So because of that, I really realized the good points of so many great, and there were great human beings also.
What was it like having a father as a guru? You know, you have spoken very often of being blessed by the guru, of the transmission of the guru, and these are two very, very strong relationships: a father and a son,
yes,
and a guru and a shishya. And I think that you have also drawn in our conversation many parallels to sort of what would be a more spiritual transmission between the guru and the student. And the terminology, yes, guru shishya, applies to both traditions, the spiritual and the musical. So what was that like?
It's difficult to describe, actually. It's all feelings, emotional, very sensitive feelings, because my father was very, very old when I think I was the last unexpected child to this world. So I had the benefit of that he was very kind and very affectionate. At the same time, you know, if I am not playing properly, he will shout, he will scream, and he will go out, or he'll ask me to go out. That happened, but very rarely. But from the very beginning in my life, I was made to feel that I'm the one who has to,
carry forward the
lineage, and I'm the Khalifa, and I'm this and that. So I was treated with great reverence right from my childhood, I mean, the greatest shock I had when I came to Delhi and went to the school and somebody addressed me as Tu. Tu kya kar raha hai? That was so, I was not used to this language, because in our family, we were always taught how to talk, how to sit, how to stand in front of seniors and aap or ji. But Tu, only you talk to God, I think. Anyway, so my father, because he was my guru, but generally my elder brothers, my uncle, they were all like guru to me, because everybody taught me, they all loved me. And it was very rarely that directly my father ever took Sarod, but he always sang. I used to follow him, I used to listen to him, and he was so simple, innocent, that one day he's teaching me in Gwalior, in our same ancestral house, Sarod Ghar, and few people came around, 20, 30 people came to see him, and they were all waiting because he was teaching to me, and then he started singing to them. One song, two song, three song, four song, nearly 1.5 hours. Poor fellows, they were listening to him, and he was singing. He thought that they are, they appreciate music. Then quietly I told my father in his ear, I said, Sahab, please ask them for what they have come. So then, oh yeah, I'm sorry, please tell me what can I do for you. So they had come to deliver an invitation card for their daughter's wedding, actually. So his life was always music, singing, playing, and talking about Rag, Ragini. So I'm really very fortunate that I could see that era, that time. I mean, my father was the heroes of 40s, actually, 40s, 50s. He was the contemporary of Abdul Karim Khan Sahab, Fayaz Khan Sahab, and Alawi Khan Sahab.
You are, of course, now a guru and a father to your two sons who are performing.
Yes.
So what value has the relationship with your own father had in carrying forward this tradition?
You see, fortunately, we don't have that kind of age difference what I had with my father. But at the same time, my elder son, Amaan Ali Bangash, when he was born in 77, and he showed positive sign. I mean, I never forced, but I was always keen that they should enjoy, they must like the sound of Sarod. And then after 2 years, Ayaan, my younger son, Ayaan Ali Bangash, he came and he also showed positive sign. And from the very beginning, they started traveling with me, they started sitting on the stage, sometimes they were playing tambura. As I said, it's a way of life, and my wife, Subhalakshmi, has given a lot of time to them, and because she is an artist herself, and so we both have given them a lot of time, and we were very keen that they should be very respectful, they should always receive blessings and good wishes from seniors. So we tried to transmit and try to pass on this message that one day you should become the symbol of our etiquette, our culture, our tradition. But I think their time is even worse than what I had in my childhood. I mean, this electronic gadgets, electronic media, and it's a world of media. And the saddest part is nobody is bothered about musical character of India. What is music albums, what you are hearing on television. It may be Indians who are producing the programs, but they themselves, unfortunately, they don't know what they are presenting.
I sense a great sense of despair that you seem to have about the decline of values, of culture, of our heritage, of the purity. You're still very young in terms of a musical lifespan.
Yes.
What sort of goals, dreams do you set yourself? Apart from your personal accomplishments, which are already considerable, as you said, you're deeply loved, India's most loved musician. You felt. What goal, aspiration, dream is left for you?
I feel that one day every Indian should be able to sing Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni, because the sense of sound, as I said earlier, that it is much more than a medicine. It is much more than a yoga. Every note, every musical note is connected with our very important cell of our mind. Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni Sa. I mean, when we are singing a song, I mean, you are using the same notes, but you don't know what you are doing. You think you are singing a film song, you think you are singing a folk song, you think you are singing a song of Michael Jackson or Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. But every song of any country is based on Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti or Sa Re Ga Ma Pa Dha Ni. But I wish that the human beings will realize these musical notes. I hope they should, or even musicians themselves. There are so many musicians, they are making music albums. They are singing very well, but most of them, they don't know what musical notes they are using.
Well, we shall be applauding this aspiration, and Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, thank you very much. This has been a great honor.
Thank you.
And a great privilege.
Malkos. So this is the challenge, that I am only improvising within these 5 notes. So, da da ra 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 ra, da ra 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 ra. So technically there are only 5 notes. Then da 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 da. So there are so many expressions, but within these 5 notes. Sometimes I do feel like adding another note, like da 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 da. It becomes something else, and maybe Rag Malkos will not approve of this. And the Rag Malkos, my father used to say that sometimes even a rag can curse you. Very important, and we are committed our life. We have surrendered ourselves to God, to the art, to the Sarod, and to the purity of our ancient ragas like Darbari, Malkos, Yaman, Bageshri, and we don't want to compromise. At the same time, I feel today that nobody in this world, or at least in our own country, nobody is bothered about the character of our music being ruined or spoiled. I mean, what we hear on All India Radio or television, there's nobody to see whether the music they are playing, even as a signature tune, it's not Indian music.
What is what is it about music when it becomes spoilt? You use the word spoiled. You know, you have. Hello and welcome to Mindscapes, a series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is one of India's most distinguished and prolific musicians, classical musicians. He comes from a distinguished lineage that goes back to the famous musician Tansen. Innovation, you have change, you have instrumentation. What is the point where you feel it's been corrupted, and what is legitimate change? I mean, you two have done compositions with the Hong Kong Philharmonic, and so what is the balance?
As we discussed about the purity, like Rag Malkos is a pentatonic rag. It has 5 notes, And as a classical musician who has such rich legacy and the gurus and ancestors, so I cannot take liberty with Rag Malkos. Rag Malkos is like a human being, and with great reverence, with great respect, I even pray to Rag Malkos. I hope I'm able to portray your true picture and true self of
a lineage that invented the instrument that he plays. I'm delighted to welcome Ustad Amjad Ali Khan. Welcome. You have been, your family, your tradition, you have children who play, have been deeply committed to the purity of music, of the musical form, of the associations that go with it.
Yes.
Why is the purity so important? Is there something intrinsic to being pure? To what degree does it change and evolve, and does change make it impure in some ways?
I mean, this reminds me in 1960 when my father received Padma Bhushan. He appealed to the President of India to look after the purity of Rag Darbari Kanara. So purity is really